What's going on, YouTube? Happy New Year. It is January 4th, Friday of 2013, and this is the beginning of my newest segment that I'm doing now that fantasy football is in the off season. I'm just going to kind of share with you guys on a weekly basis some of my thoughts on topics going around the sports world that I call the weekly word. So I figured this week, considering it is the start of the NFL playoffs, I figured I would just kind of keep it with the NFL this week. So we're just going to kind of just talk real quick about a couple things around the NFL. The first thing, of course, was this past Monday. Black Monday was this past week, and a lot of coaching changes. The hammer came down on a lot of coaches, and that was expected. Some we kind of already knew about out there. We knew that Andy Reid was probably going to get fired in Philadelphia. We knew that Romeo Crennel was probably going to go in Kansas City. And really, you really can't really surprise those moves because Kansas City has definitely struggled for years, going through a 2-14 season this year. Got the number 1 pick in the draft next year. Granted, this really isn't the year to have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft because there's not a whole lot of depth in the talent pool this year, unlike last year with guys like Luck and RG3 and the lot of those guys. But definitely, Kansas City has just been through some tough years of late. Scott Pioli is GM. He was let go today as well. He never really was able to bring his great play or his great success in New England. He was never really able to bring that over into Kansas City. He had a lot of coaching missteps. Todd Haley never really worked out. Now Crennel didn't work out this season. Plus, this season, of course, was really overshadowed by the murder-suicide of Javon Belcher and his girlfriend. So it was just a very tough situation. So that was kind of expected. Andy Reid getting let go in Philadelphia, that was, again, I think it was just, kind of a thing waiting to happen. 4-12 this season. Michael Vick gets hurt a lot, doesn't pan out. The quarterback situation was a mess, but really you can't blame Reid really for this season because there was a lot of injuries to his key players. You lose Vick for the year. You lose LaShawn McCoy for the year. You lose Deshaun Jackson for the year. Now, granted, it's always next man up. You should be able to, as a coach, be able to say that the people behind them are going to play well, but that never really materialized for the Eagles this season. So Reid was pretty much a dead man walking, per se, if he was not able to hit the backups behind those top-tier guys into talented players, which he really was not able to do. And it's hard because Reid also had a tough go of it this year. He lost his son earlier in the year to the drug overdose situation, and that was hard to deal with. So it was just very, very tough situation for the Eagles this year. But good news for fans of Reid, he is now the new coach in Kansas City. That was likely announced today. They have reached an agreement. Nothing official yet. There's no press conference or anything yet, but all signs are pointing to Reid becoming the next coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's why Pioli was let go as GM, because Reid has really been wanting lately to assemble his own staff and bring them over to Kansas City. So as for how I see that playing out, time will tell. Kansas City is a pretty big mess right now. They need help at the quarterback position. Obviously they're set at running back with, I think they're set really a running back with Jamal Charles, at wide receiver with Dwayne Bowe. Even the young guy, John Baldwin, came on late in the year. But really it is at quarterback position. They need to find a really solid guy. Obviously Castle getting hurt, that didn't help chances, but Brady Quinn is not their future answer. He has just never really been a strong quarterback in the NFL, so I don't think he should be the future in Kansas City. I don't know if Andy Reid's going to be sold on him. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, but I think the fit is good. I at least think expectations shouldn't be put too high on him right away, but definitely better than 2-14, I think, is what the fans of Kansas City are going to expect from Andy Reid. I mean, you have to understand, before this season, Reid's resume was really, really good. 9 playoff appearances in Philadelphia, plus you had the couple Super Bowl appearances. That, and he somehow survived with T.O. on the roster. That in and of itself is impressive. So we'll see, but certainly it's nice to see that Reid has finally found a spot, and now he'll get to make his own way in Kansas City. Other openings that opened up, Shane Gailey was fired in Buffalo. That really didn't come as much of a shocker either. The Bills have definitely struggled in recent seasons. I think the Browns let their coach and GM go. Um, let's see, some other ones. Of course, the Jets did not let Rex Ryan go, at least not yet. Nothing officially. They let their GM Mike Tannenbaum go, but nothing there yet. Um, I think those are really the big ones that I was aware of. Cowboys, Jerry Jones has said there may be a lot of changes coming. Nothing official yet, nothing set in stone yet. But they went 8-8 this season, and Jerry's not going to take that lying down. But the big shocker for me, and actually a couple shockers. Number one, why is the coach? I mean, I don't know. Did they let go of Del Rio in Jacksonville? I'm not aware. I don't really follow the Jags all that much. But the new guy, I don't know if there's a new guy or if Del Rio's still there. The Jags went 2-14 this year with a mess of a roster as well. Maybe the new owner there, Khan, is just hoping that something's going to happen in the draft or something. I don't know. But I was surprised the Jags didn't let go of their coach, whoever it is now. But Lovie Smith in Chicago, that really was the one that I think definitely surprised me and surprised a lot of people out there, I think, as well, especially Bears fans. You win 10 games this season. Guy won 10 games, and yeah, he missed the playoffs, but not by much. But I later found out and read that really the big sticking point of the reason as to why Lovie Smith was let go was because of the ineffectiveness of the offense. That really was the big thing. Chicago's defense has been rock solid for years, mostly because of the play of Brian Urlacher and Lance Briggs and those guys. But for the most part, it was because of the offense. Jay Cutler never got better. Matt Forte was getting injured. Michael Bush was sort of filling in well, but not doing great. The receivers were having hit and miss weeks. Brandon Marshall was really the only big target that Cutler had. And if he didn't do well, the team didn't do well. And if Cutler was getting knocked on his butt every week, which for the most part he was, or getting hurt, then it was tough. So for me, though, it's kind of hard to blame Smith for the whole offense's troubles. To me, on the surface, it looked like, oh, he's the reason that Jay Cutler stunk. Okay. But, maybe. I don't know what the Bears were thinking. I mean, this is a guy that took them also to the Super Bowl just a couple seasons ago. Granted, they lost to the Colts, but he has really done some good things in Chicago. So I was definitely kind of surprised. I hope he ends up in the end somewhere where he can turn a team around and work with the talent that's on the roster. Think about this. What if he ends up in a place like Philly or Arizona? What if he ends up there where you've already got talent in place? You've already got, in Philly, you've got, when they come back healthy, you've got Michael Vick if he stays. You've got LaShawn McCoy. You've got Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, Brent Selleck. These guys, these offensive weapons that have been in Philadelphia, if Lovie Smith gets a hold of those and can really mold them together well, I think Philly then will finally have the season that Eagles fans are wanting. What if he ends up in Arizona? Granted, I don't know if he'll stick with Kevin Cobb as quarterback, but the Cardinals did sign him to a 5-year deal, so he might be stuck there with them. But you've got Larry Fitzgerald. You've got the young receiver Michael Floyd. You've got Beanie Wells if he stays healthy. You've got Stevens Howling behind him who had a breakout year this year. I really hope that Lovie Smith finds a place where he can truly mold the talent that is in these NFL teams because I have mad respect for the guy and what he did in Chicago. So I really hope that Lovie Smith does find a good job and a strong job for him because I think there's a lot of potential with him. So that's really my take on all the coaching moves. Obviously, there'll be a lot to follow in the weeks to come where these coaches eventually end up. There's a lot of speculation also that Chip Kelly of Oregon is being interviewed for some positions. I think he's being interviewed for the Bills position and the Browns position potentially. And, that's the big question really is what kind of success does a college coach have coming to the NFL where it's really a different system, it's different things going on. When Nick Saban came from college to the NFL, he didn't have much success. When Bobby Petrino briefly came from the college to Atlanta, he didn't even last, I don't think, a game there. So really, there's not a whole lot of instances where college coaches come to the NFL and try. Now, we know what Chip Kelly has done with the Oregon Ducks. He's been an offensive juggernaut, an offensive mastermind, and just turning the team into a you need to catch up with us type of team if you're going to beat us. In the NFL, though, you can't just be an offensive-minded coach and expect to win games. You've got to figure out how to balance both sides of the ball, and that's where I think Chip Kelly could really ultimately struggle. But who knows? If he lands a job in the NFL, I think that'd be great for him. Certainly, it'd be a step up. But really, the question that I have in my mind is, could Oregon afford to lose him? Could really, he's got a great situation right now at Oregon. Would he be willing to leave that for the NFL and seeing whether or not his philosophies would work in the NFL? That's really the big thing I have with Chip Kelly. So, again, to wait and see what happens, see how this coaching carousel continues to spin, and we'll see what happens there. Couple other stories that I want to talk to you guys about. I was gonna, and I'll address this one too. And I mentioned in the feed, I'm gonna address Tim Tebow and his future. But I also wanted to talk about a story that came out just yesterday, and that's Ray Lewis. He announced yesterday that this would be his last year in the NFL after I think 16, 17 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens. And let me tell you, I have truly been. It has been an honor. It has been a privilege. It has been many positive words to watch Ray Lewis play in the NFL. He has truly been one of the most outstanding defensive players out there. Even though I'm a Colts fan and I grew up here in Indy and always will be, I am just so looking forward to seeing Lewis play in Baltimore tomorrow or Sunday, excuse me, to see the Colts play the Ravens. It could be his last game. It might not if they beat the Colts, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what he gives out there in his final games, because he has just been such a joy to watch. Now, granted, there was that situation off the field in I think 2000 2001 when he was in that kind of that murder issue in Atlanta, but aside from that, he has truly been a class act guy. He is just so entertaining on the field. He brings energy, passion, intensity. His pregame intros, we've seen that from him. How he when he's mic'd for sound, when he hypes up the huddle. That is just so intriguing to watch and exciting. And so we know what he's going to bring on the field. And there are reports out there that after his NFL career is over, he's going to be signing a deal with ESPN, which I think is really cool, because he's going to bring that insight, that passion, and that love of the game into the broadcast booth, which I think is just going to be really, really cool to see. But for now, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Ray play these final few games. He has just been a joy to watch. I can't wait. The Ravens D. I've used the Ravens D in fantasy football before, and it's been truly outstanding to watch and be a part of this defense. Won a Super Bowl title in 2000 with the Ravens when they destroyed the Giants 34-7. Was the MVP of that game even. So, just an absolute amazing player to watch. He will definitely be missed in the NFL. But just a great player to watch, and can't wait to see what he brings to ESPN after his playing days are over. But certainly will be missed. All right, moving on. Past that now, let's talk briefly about Tim Tebow. And I know that a lot of people are going to say, oh, aren't we sick of talking about him? All the news talk about him all the time. Well, we kind of have to, because, that from the moment that the Jets signed him in the offseason, I never really understood why they signed him. I never really understood why. I thought for sure that Tebow was going to wind up in Jacksonville, because it was more of a mess there than the Jets. The Jets at least had a solid situation with Mark Sanchez as quarterback. I knew that Tebow would never leapfrog him. I had a feeling. And even though Sanchez was struggling at times this season, it seemed as the wording went on and on that they just weren't going to use him as quarterback. They just weren't. He was only going to be a wildcat guy, used in different situations, briefly put in games, and I felt so bad, because he's a fellow Christian guy, as am I, and And that's tough. That's tough to see when such a guy trying to be an exemplary role model in the NFL, trying to get his shot in the league, and had a great year in Denver, and finally cut loose for Peyton Manning, and all he wants to do is get an opportunity with New York, and they're not giving him opportunities. So to play the position that he wants to play, which is quarterback. So it was just tough to see all year this drama of Tebow playing out as the season went along, and them not really giving the guy a chance, not even a shot. So even as Sanchez struggled all season, then finally it just reached a point with Tebow where he could no longer pin up his frustration. He finally revealed to the media, yeah, I'm frustrated. Yeah, I'm fed up. Yeah, I want to play. I want to play quarterback for the New York Jets or somewhere in the NFL. Somebody please give me a shot. Our team is struggling. We're stinking it up week after on a weekly basis. Mark Sanchez is, I think he just fumbled again, running into a guy's butt. I mean, it's just, it's awful stuff. So give the guy a shot. But the Jets never did. Even when Sanchez was out with injuries, they turned to Greg McElroy instead, a third string guy who they've hardly ever used. Um, so it was really painful to watch this drama play out with Tebow, and then finally, when it was all over at the end of the season, they finally announced, well, okay, we're finally going to cut ways with Tebow, and we might even get rid of Sanchez too. So get this, Jets. It's so bad for you now that at the moment they're thinking that your future is in a third string quarterback named Greg McElroy. Wow. Unless you address quarterback in the draft, you're just going to have an even tougher go of it next season unless McElroy has this breakout season and just finds himself. So, turning to Tebow's future, where is he ultimately going to end up? I read on ESPN that virtually Tebow to the Jaguars is a done deal. Nothing official has been announced yet, at least not from what I've seen. Someone can quote me, can fill me in if I'm wrong. But Tebow to the Jaguars is pretty much a virtual certainty next season. And I think that's great because the Jags are just a straight up mess. 2-14 this year. Granted, they did not have Maurice Jones-Drew this season, their star running back. He missed mostly all the season with this nagging foot issue. The backup running backs never got any better. They had some breakout receiver performances. Cecil Shorts was obviously their stud of the year at wide receiver. Justin Blackman kind of came on late in the year, but was very hit or miss for them. But the issue was at quarterback. Blaine Gabbert has never proven himself in this league. He's proving to be a big-time bust first-round draft choice right now. And Chad Henne started to come along a little bit, but had his hits and misses. But, ultimately, I think he should be the guy going forward because Gabbert has definitely not proven himself to be worthy of an NFL starting spot. So, I think they could use him. He'd be back in Florida where he played college. He would be a great fit for Jacksonville. So I really hope that this does happen. I hope that Tebow does go to Jacksonville and gets his shot, gets a legitimate shot, because we saw what he did in Denver. The guy can win games. He can do well. He just needs to be in the right situation. And clearly, in New York, he was not in the right situation, apparently, because they didn't even really want to use him at all. So it was just so tough to watch. So I hope, kind of like Lovie Smith, where I hope he ends up in this ideal situation, I hope the same thing happens to Tim Tebow, because I really do want to see him succeed in the NFL, not just because he's a Christian man, but because of the fact that he didn't get a fair shake this season. He didn't get, he was pretty much invisible. He really, he would be used for one or two plays and then, back to the bench. Okay, where's my clipboard? That's what it was. He never really got a fair shot. So even when his team was struggling, all he wants to do is help his team win games. That's it. That's his sole thing when it comes to his team. He said it, I want to help the team win. I want to be out there playing quarterback. I want to help the team win games. Well, he can't do that if he's on the bench. So somebody give Tebow a shot, and hopefully it's Jacksonville, and hopefully they really, really utilize him in a bigger role than just being a wildcat guy. That's or a punt protector. That was the real embarrassment. That the Jets said, "Hey, Tebow, we'll use you as a punt protector." That was just totally embarrassing. No reason in the end to pick him up. Worst offseason move apparently of last season. Period. All right, guys. Finally, real quick, I just want to give you my take on this weekend's playoff games. Real quick, my thoughts on them, my picks for them for you guys this weekend. Real excited about these games, playoffs. The run to New Orleans is starting. Getting really jacked and excited for that. Saturday's games on the AFC side, you've got Cincinnati going to Houston. This is actually a rematch of a wild card game that actually happened also last year. This was Houston's first playoff game in team history, and they just simply destroyed the Bengals, winning 31-10. It was just complete domination by the Texans. The key play of the game was when J.J. Watt just point blank intercepted a pass from Andy Dalton and took it back the other way for a 29-yard touchdown. That was kind of the turning point in the game after kind of a slow start by both teams. Here's where it's kind of different, though, this year. Yeah, the seeds are the same, but here's the thing. Cincinnati is coming in to this playoffs red hot. They've won 7 of their last 8 games, while Houston is kind of limping in. Houston could have been very well the number 1 seed. In fact, they had a chance to clinch number 1 last week, but they lost to the Colts, and then Denver and New England easily won their games, so they got the byes, and Houston's left stuck in the mud as the number 3 seed. But you really can't discount the Texans just because of that. They still have ideal weapons. Obviously, first off, they're at home, so the home crowd's going to be jacked for this game. You got Matt Schaub, you got Arian Foster, you got Andre Johnson. Those 3 alone make the core of Houston's offense. If those 3 get going, Houston's going to be very tough to stop. Plus, you've got that Houston defense. I mean, J.J. Watt alone is a beast. He's a playmaker, and he alone can make plays. The key for Houston is going to be, can they force Andy Dalton into turnovers, which Dalton this season and past has been very turnover prone. If Dalton can avoid turnovers, then Cincinnati is going to stay in this game. But for me, I just don't see that happening in Houston. I think Houston's going to finally find a way to shake this off. And besides, they've owned Cincinnati. They know they can compete with the Bengals. They know they can force Dalton into pressure and turnovers. They know they can cover A.J. Green, who really, A.J. Green is Cincinnati's only weapon. He's pretty much it. Jermaine Gresham, yeah, he gets involved every once in a while. Andrew Hawkins, gets involved every once in a while. But Jarvis Green Ellis is not an elite running back by any standard, so A.J. Green is Cincinnati's only weapon. So if they can completely eliminate him from the game and force Dalton into pressure, which I think they're going to do, I think Houston is going to take this game fairly easily. In fact, I would not be surprised if Houston won this game by double figures. I think that they're going to finally shake off all these problems that they've had. I think they know what Cincinnati is capable of. I think Houston is going to win this game fairly easily going away. So that's my take on that. I like the Texans in that game. As for the Saturday night on NBC as well, that is Packers-Vikings. And this is a rematch game. These two teams just met last week, in fact, and the Vikings needed that game to even get in the playoffs to eliminate the Bears, who would win their game against Detroit. But Minnesota had a lot to play for that time. Adrian Peterson's going for the rushing record. He ultimately fell 9 yards short. But the big thing for Minnesota was they got the win, and they're in the playoffs. Now they got to face the same team again, but the script flipped a little bit. That game was in Minnesota. This game is in Green Bay at Lambeau Field in the cold. And Aaron Rodgers, when it comes to the cold weather and it comes to Lambeau Field, he just seems to be on his game. In fact, he's been on another level this whole season for the most part, but he recently has really been at its level. And it's going to be relied on him to win this game for Green Bay, because Green Bay right now, the running game is, as I've said it before, it's like NORAD. Can you find it on radar? Hello? Boo! Boo! Green Bay's running game? Hello? It's non-existent. Alex Green, not the answer. James Starks, not the answer. Ryan Grant, please, not the answer. They cannot find any way to sufficiently run the ball, so Aaron Rodgers is going to have to throw in this game a lot in order for him to win. But thankfully, he does have a lot of throwing weapons. Greg Jennings is back. Healthy, has looked good of late. James Jones is still strong. Jordy Nelson, if he plays, he's been dealing with some injuries this season, but if he plays, he'll look strong. And, of course, Randall Cobb, who has had a breakout year for the Packers this year. So if Rodgers looks strong, I don't see any way the Packers lose this game. The Packers are also going to be very, very pardon the French, hell bent on stopping Adrian Peterson. They are sick and tired, I'm sure, of being embarrassed by him week after week. Peterson has put up 409 yards in their 2 contests this season, including the one where he went over 200 and fell just short of Dickerson's record. So they are going to do everything in their power to try to shut him down. And now there's word out that Christian Ponder, even though he's probably all likely going to play, he's listed as questionable with an elbow injury. If Ponder can't throw in this game and the Packers do find a way to shut down AP, Minnesota is in big, big trouble. And I think they are just coming in. I think this will certainly be another close game, grinded out. I think AP will get his share of work, but I think the Packers are just too good, too dangerous at home. I think they are set on making a big, big run through the playoffs, and they're certainly capable of that. And if they get another shot at Atlanta, the same team that destroyed them last year when Green Bay was the #1 seed, you know that Green Bay is going to be just definitely bent on winning that game as well. I like the Pack at home. Close game, but I definitely think Green Bay is going to come through and win this game here. The Sunday matchups, again, AFC side, 1 o'clock Eastern time, Colts at Ravens. The storylines in this game, obviously, huge. They're huge on both sides. Coach Chuck Pagano facing his former team. The whole thing with the rough relationship between Baltimore and Indianapolis, obviously. There's still some fans in Baltimore who are very bitter over the way that the Baltimore Colts left town back in the 80s. So there's that going on. And, of course, Ray Lewis's last game as a Raven, potentially, if the team doesn't win, plus his return from that triceps injury. Both teams, obviously, they know each other really well. These two have also met in the playoffs a lot over time. But the last couple of years, the Colts have had the Ravens' number. They've won the last 2 meetings, and I believe both have been in Baltimore. Now, granted, this is the first time they're meeting in the wild card round. Those last 2 meetings were in the divisional round. But the Colts have won them both, including a 15-6 field goal fest a couple of years ago. And that was even when Baltimore was the higher seed, I believe. In this case, they're also the higher seed. The Colts story this year has just been so magical. It's just what an amazing turnaround it has been, going from 2-14 to 11-5 this year with mostly a team of rookies. There are only a few veterans on this roster. Obviously, Freeney, Mathis, Bethea. But other than that, this team has been the team of the young guns. Guys like Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton breaking out. Dwayne Allen, Kobe Fleener, Vic Ballard at running back. These guys have just put it together week after week. And was it the emotion of their coach struggling in the hospital to overcome that? Maybe it was. But still, you can't tell me that was the only reason that this team won games and that Andrew Luck was clutch in 7 games. He had seven games this season when he won the game in fourth quarter or overtime. That is just truly astounding for a rookie quarterback, a #1 pick, mind you, to do that in his first season. In fact, Andrew Luck will be the first quarterback, a rookie quarterback, taken #1 to start a playoff game, I think ever, or at least in a long, long time, is what I read. So that's just great stuff. It just further transcends the story of the Colts this year. So obviously a lot of storylines going on. Baltimore is going to try, the defense is going to try hard to shut down that offense, but Ray Rice is probably going to get his yards because the Colts' run defense is like Swiss cheese. It hadn't been able to stop much of anything. But ultimately, when it comes to momentum, when it comes to mojo, the Colts are riding strong into the playoffs. Baltimore is really kind of limping in. They started strong, and lately they've lost. I think it was like they started 9-2, and now they've lost like 4 of the last 5. They've really kind of struggled as of late. So I think, Coach Pagano has talked about it all week, talked about riding the mojo. And I think the Colts really have that mojo juice strong right now. So I have to take the Colts in this game. I think it is going to be a very close, grinded out kind of game. But ultimately, I like the Colts in this one. Sorry, Ray. I hate for your last game, but I got to ride my Colts in this one. Not just being that I'm a fan, but I really think that the Colts have Baltimore's number. Pagano knows their system well, and I think that that's just going to be too much for the Ravens to overcome. besides that, Flacco, I've not been impressed by all year. I don't think he's going to be able to do much against the Colts secondary either. So, and he didn't have a whole lot of weapons either through the air. So, I like the Colts. Bit close, but I like them. And the final wild card match this week is Seahawks and Redskins. This is really the shootout of the week. This is the fun one that I'm really looking forward to watching this weekend. I mean, think about it. Two rookie quarterbacks that have really willed their teams this season to this point. What Russell Wilson has done in Seattle is nothing short of astounding. He has truly been amazing for this team. To think that at the start of the year, we were talking about Matt Flynn starting in Seattle, and he never really got the chance. Russell Wilson was named the starter pretty much right away, and he has just killed it this season. Seattle has looked like the real deal these past few weeks. They have blown out teams. Of course, there was that 58-0 blowout of Arizona. There was the 50-17 carving up of Buffalo. There was the 42-14 destruction of San Francisco, a playoff team, mind you, San Francisco, their division rivals. So, but here's where Seattle is, here's the big thing when it comes to Seattle. Seattle is 8-0 at home. The 12th man, CenturyLink Field, very tough to play at. Seattle's 3-5 on the road, but the Seahawks have won their last few road games. Although close, they have won them. So at least they're showing that they can win on the road, but it's very different playing that loud and raucous crowd in Seattle than on the road in someone else's backyard. So it will definitely be tougher for Seattle to see what they're going to do. But actually, oddly enough, I actually like them to beat Washington in Washington this week, and here's why. Because Russell Wilson is more mobile right now than RG3. RG3 is still suffering from the ill effects of that knee issue, the sprained knee that he suffered. He's still wearing the brace on it. Granted, he had it. I think he ran for a touchdown last week in the win over Dallas, but I'm just, I don't know. I'm not fully impressed with him yet in terms of the mobility that he has. He's trying to regain from that injury. I just think that Wilson is going to barely outperform him. This is going to be, I expect a shootout. This is going to be, both defenses aren't exactly that great. Washington's D has struggled all year. They're terrible against the pass. So Seattle's receivers like Sidney Rice, Golden Tate are going to have a field day probably. But Seattle's D isn't exactly stronger. Now, Richard Sherman has been a really bright spot for Seattle of late. If he can find a way to pick off RG3 when he makes those throws, then maybe Seattle gets a better chance even. So that's another reason why I like the Seahawks, because their secondary is way, way better than the Redskins. So, again, I like this to be a real shootout game. I expect maybe even be in the low 20s, high 30s for scoring. But I like the Seahawks in a very close game. Who knows? Seattle might even win on a last-second field goal or an overtime play or something like that. So, expect a shootout in that one. So, to recap, give me the Texans, the Packers, the Colts, and the Seahawks this weekend. All right, guys, that's it for the weekly word this week. Next week, we might have some different topics mixed in, so we're not just focusing strictly on NFL. And I'm sure we'll talk about the divisional playoff weekend as well. But one or two other things, might talk about maybe what's happening with if there's going to be an NHL season this year with the resumption of the lockout. Some other things going on as well. I just want to kind of make this as discussive as possible. Throw some different topics in there week after week. So if you guys like it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comment box below. If not, if you don't want me to do it, that's fine. I'll take that too. If you guys want to share your own topics for discussion, please feel free. I like to hear what you guys are talking about in the sports world and your thoughts on things going on. So just stay tuned to the channel for more of the weekly word. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.